the Accra High Court. My colleague Kwekwa Asante is on standby to give us updates on the 4 contested seats, and the NPP is in court. They have put before the court a mandamus application. The NDC is kicking against the application. They say that rather the NPP ought to have presented a petition. Let's cross over now live to my colleague Kwekwa Asante. What's the verdict of the court today?
So the High Court has just concluded hearing of arguments here at the High Court with respect to these 4 disputed constituencies, where the New Patriotic Party is seeking a mandamus order, asking the High Court to order the High Court to recollate the results. They said it's not a recollation, it's a collation exercise because they believe that the exercise has not concluded as of when it started. And so they went through all the arguments from Tema Central to Techiman South to Ablekuma North, and all these 4 constituencies and the issues with respect to these places. They started from Tema Central, where the argument was made by Mr. Gary Nimakun for the applicants and the MPP essentially, that the collation started but could not be completed because the process was marred with violence, and that they actually set the demand on the Electoral Commission to collate and declare the results of that election, and that the Electoral Commission has up till now delayed and has not completed the collation, and that the NDC, even though it claims to have won the election, has not attached any summary results sheet to prove that their candidate was indeed declared. They did play a video in court today that showed a declaration of Abby Bright as the winner of that election. So Abby Bright was declared winner, but the case was made that it had not been appropriately done. So you can see some of the candidates who are now coming out of court. So the case was made that the candidates had not deposed any affidavits to.
That's a long way to go, but I'm glad to say, revolution. That's a long way to go, but I'm glad to say.
Hello, Madam Rabna Obin.
It was not declared under duress.
Okay, so, Madam Obin, how did proceedings go for you today in court? How did things go for you today?
You were with us in court. We are still on it. It's been adjourned to Saturday, so hopefully.
And so the case is being made that they want to wait for the judgment to be delivered.
The lawyers made the case for you. What do you feel now? You have to come back on Saturday to know your fate. You're about 2 or 3 days before the swearing in. How does that feel?
Delay is not denial. I mean, we were all in the courtroom. It's been 6 hours of sitting. And no matter how the MPP decide to twist and turn issues, we are all privy to events. So I have no doubt that the will of the people will still stand. God will give us.
So, and that is his case, that ultimately the will of the people will prevail, and despite whatever might have happened, nothing will change. If I can speak briefly to the Baba Sadiq NDC MP, the MP elect for Okakwe Central as we speak, given all that has happened. You sat in court today. I mean, are you confident your declaration that has been called in question will be affirmed?
Yes, I've always been confident that it will be affirmed. We're hopeful. Let's see how Saturday goes. We'll wait for the ruling on Saturday, but we're very confident that with the case that we put before the judge and the strength of the authorities we cited, I mean, this shows that this will be affirmed.
But how do you take the objection that was overruled by the court earlier?
Well, you can only be grateful to the courts when the decision was made. A bit surprising, but however, we are grateful to the court. And then obviously you saw how we advanced our case, which meant that we were very prepared from the get-go. And so on the basis of how we advance our case, I think that we can only expect a very good outcome on Saturday afternoon.
The argument has been made that only 110 polling stations were declared out of 148, and that's 78% were declared in your constituency, for which reason you were declared MP-elect, and that should not be allowed to stand.
But what was the basis in the first place? I mean, the EC, the returning officer or the EC can't just unilaterally decide to declare just a few polling stations instead of the total polling stations. There was a particular reason. What was the particular reason? When we sat together with our opponents, together with the EC officials, and went through it polling station by polling stations, both of us, all of us, identified that the 31 polling stations, there was a challenge. What was the challenge? The challenge was that figures had been swapped, and that was the point that we made. I have made the point severally that we don't create pink sheets. The pink sheets that's given to us is from the EC, and so there's a famous saying from our opponents where they make a case. I think was it Dr. Bawumia said that the evidence is on the face of the pink sheet. I have a pink sheet from you as EC, and from EC, the figures on the pink sheet that you've given to me shows that I've won in 31 polling stations. And if this 31 polling stations is added to the 110, it puts me ahead, and I beat my opponent to 2,352. You know, a gap of 2,352. However, during the collation, you find out that the figures that is coming from the collation are different. So this is what we pointed out. You know, and it's surprising the stance they're taking, because my opponent's agents were in the room at the time and they had agreed. In fact, the suggestion, from what I understand, came from them. I didn't initially agree that the 31 polling stations be set aside, because I knew that this was my numbers. I was going to be disadvantaged. You know, so I mean, it wasn't a case. We still stand that. I mean, if the 31 polling stations, with the pink sheet that we have given to us by the EC, is anything to go by, we would have won the election. We would won the election, in fact. You know, and if it comes to Kakri Central, for instance, there are some polling stations that the NDC has never ever won in these polling stations. This time around in 2024, we won a number of these polling stations. Interestingly, whilst everybody is there, pink sheet shows that you've won. You come to collation and the figures have been swapped. You know, and so that's the point that we made during the collation. Before the EC themselves, they have their own policies. We are not the ones that decide for the EC what to do regarding declaration. They went in and they did their declaration. As it stands now, that detailed declaration, I think, to be fair, has been done.
That's why you disagree that it was done under duress.
Of course, I mean, it was never done under duress. I mean, it will require a whole court petition to be able to determine some of these issues that they brought in. But be satisfied, some of you were in court, you heard them. The narrative of duress was largely missing. You know, in our case, for instance, I mean, when my opponent had written to the EC, the letter that was read in court, for instance, he was reiterating to them or affirming that the declaration had been done. He only wanted it to be revoked because of irregularity and coercion. These are two different ways. I mean, if you.
Thank you very much. So you heard there Baba Sadiq making his case in court as to why he believed that the case has really been made for them to win, and that ultimately they are not going to lose in this case. So let me take you through some of the arguments that have been ultimately made in court. The court started today by ruling on a preliminary legal objection that was raised yesterday by the NDC as to the jurisdiction of the court. They argued that these cases were simply election petitions that have been disguised as mandamus application, for which reason they wanted that case thrown out. The court disagreed and said that these are real mandamus issues, these are real issues that the applicants can come by way of judicial review to have. And so the court today dismissed that preliminary legal objection filed by the National Democratic Congress, and then proceeded to go into the substance of the mandamus application. It started a hearing with Tema Central, and the argument was made by the NPP and Gary Nimaku, who led the case for them, that when it comes to this, the coalition in that constituency was not complete and that the process was marred in chaos. He also argued that the purported declaration made was without 2 polling stations, and that the NDC has not provided any pink sheet to show that in fact they have won that election, and that the EC itself has been asking for the court to make a determination
and make orders to them. That is the position put out today in court today by Justin Amenuvo for the Electoral Commission, that they are ready to continue the process if the court will make orders directed at them. But Edoji Kujo-Tamaklo for the NDC opposed that and said that if the claim by the NPP was that the declaration was made in breach of CI 147, then it does not come by way of mandamus. We should explain that mandamus is an order that will be made by a court compelling a public officer to act. And if the NPP themselves are in court and saying that the results have actually been declared, but that have been declared improperly, then the grounds or the basis should not be mandamus, but by election petition. We continue to make that case in court, and then the court continued to the Okaikwe Central constituency. And Patrick Boama, the lawyers of Patrick Boama, argue that they actually served the demand notice on the EC to conclude the recollation, and that the declaration that were made in Okaikwe Central, that declared Baba Sadiq as the Member of Parliament elect, only took into consideration 110 polling stations as against 148 polling stations. That must have been the total. The Electoral Commission again said they are willing to continue the process if the court should make the order. Edoji Tameklo actually read a letter that was sent from Patrick Boama to the Electoral Commission. Patrick Boama wrote that the Electoral Commission should revoke the declaration made in favor of Baba Sadiq because it was done irregularly. And then the NDC made the case that if they admit that the results had been declared and their case is that that result must be revoked, it is not on the grounds of mandamus that you can do that unless you go by way of election petition. And so the argument was also made. And then Gary Nimakho, looking at the time, said that he was going to take, when it comes to Techiman South and Ablekuma North together, and rely on his affidavits and documents that he has filed in court. The Electoral Commission also backed that and said that they are only urging the court to read the documents and watch all the videos that have been attached. But Edoji Kujo-Tamaklo still wanted to serialize them one by one and make a case for them. As regards to Techiman South, he says that the claim that a document, that is a coalition summary sheets, have been falsified is not true, and that if the NPP is making the case that the declaration was made but the summary sheet was falsified, you cannot adduce any evidence to back that when you are hearing a mandamus application unless you come by way of an election petition. And so he made the same argument and cited a string of cases and repeated the argument to Ablekuma North. Ultimately, the NDC's case is that in all these 4 constituencies, there are videos that they have attached to their processes that show that the Electoral Commission actually declared the election for the NDC parliamentary candidates. If the NPP's case is that the declarations were procured either under duress or the documents were falsified or it was marred in chaos or conflict, the proper forum to redress this issue is to go to the High Court by way of an election petition and not come by way of mandamus. The court has now adjourned proceedings and judgment is now expected on Saturday at 12 noon. And so on Saturday at 12, the judge will come here and read the judgment in all these 4 cases as whether or not the Electoral Commission should go ahead and recollate the results and redeclare, or what is going to happen is it's going to affirm that a declaration has already been made, and if these NPP candidates who lost have any case, then they should do so by way of an election petition. So, Faustina, that is the status quo today. The cases have all been dealt with, and judgment is now expected on Saturday at 12 noon.
At 12 noon, we'll bring you that update. Just giving you an update as to what exactly happened at the Accra High Court today. Now, the NDC is making some sound argument. They argue that if the issues being raised by the NPP is about the declaration of the results being under duress with regards to the EC presiding officer, then they ought to be submitting an election petition, not a mandamus application. And that's what played out in court today. We heard from the likes of Baba Sadiq, who's optimistic that this would all work out for the NDC. And we're looking forward to how this will play out in court. Would the NPP withdraw their case and file a new motion? We'll find out on Saturday. Or will the court actually work things out in their favor? That's all happening here on the Joy News channel on Saturday.